Officially, this place doesn't exist. If you look it up on a map, you'll find nothing. An empty patch of land, maybe a blurred out square, but certainly no military base. It has no name, no address, no public records. According to the government, it's just a piece of forgotten desert, a blank spot on the globe. But we know better, don't we? We know that some things are hidden for a reason, and the deeper the denial, the bigger the secret. Something is definitely there. You can see it if you look closely at certain satellite images. A strange geometric shape in the middle of nowhere, deliberately pixelated, and on the ground. The signs are unmistakable. High fences topped with razor wire stretching for miles. Watchtowers manned by armed guards, their silhouettes stark against the setting sun. And above, the sky is eerily empty. It's a restricted airspace, a no-fly zone. Commercial planes are forced to divert their paths, making long, strange detours around this invisible wall in the sky. If you're a civilian, you aren't allowed anywhere near it. Try to drive down the dirt roads leading in its direction, and you'll be met with stern signs. Restricted area, no trespassing. Use of deadly force authorized. It's a clear message. Stay away. Even the people who work there, the ones who pass through those gates every day, are sworn to secrecy. They live in nearby towns, but they don't talk about their jobs. They are ghosts in their own communities, their lives compartmentalized. If a curious journalist or a local resident starts asking questions, they hit a wall of silence. Officials offer vague denials, shrugs, and redirects. Questions are met with non-answers, and persistence is met with veiled threats. The official line, repeated in press conferences and public statements, is always the same. It does not exist. The denials are so frequent, so forceful, they almost become proof in themselves. A stamped denial, a headline screaming hoax, another official shaking his head at a podium. Again, and again, and again. But the truth has a way of leaking out. How do you explain the convoys of unmarked supply trucks that rumble down the desolate highways? In the dead of night, their headlights cutting through the darkness as they turn towards the supposed void? Or the mysterious flights, unmarked aircraft that land on hidden runways long after the sun has set, their arrivals and departures shielded from public view? Lights flicker to life across the compound, suggesting a city-sized operation humming with activity. All while the official narrative insists there's nothing but sand and rock. Something is operating out there, tucked away from prying eyes. Something is being built, or tested, or stored. Something so important or so dangerous that its very existence must be erased from public consciousness. When you see a facility this elaborate, with this level of security, and this commitment to secrecy, you have to ask yourself, who approved this somewhere? In a locked file drawer or on a classified server, there is a document, a signed authorization, a budget allocation, a project charter, a piece of paper that gives a name to the nameless and a purpose to the hidden. It's the key that unlocks the entire mystery. This is more than just a conspiracy theory. It's a puzzle, and the pieces are scattered all around us, hidden in plain sight. The denials, the fences, the nighttime activity, they aren't just random facts. They are clues. They are the breadcrumbs leading us down a path that the most powerful people in the world do not want us to follow. They point to an operation on a scale that is hard to comprehend. An underground world with its own rules, its own agenda, and its own secrets. We're going to follow those clues. We're going to connect the dots between the official denials and the unofficial truths. We will look at the classified documents, whistleblower testimonies, and insider leaks to piece together what's really happening in the heart of this forbidden zone. What technologies are being developed behind those fortified walls? What historical events are tied to its creation? The story of this base is a story about power, technology, and the limits of what a government can hide from its own people. It's a journey into the shadows, a peeling back of layers of deception that have been built up over decades. This is where the story begins, not at the gates of the base itself, but in the web of lies that surrounds it. Join me as we venture into the heart of the denial, To uncover the truth about the base that isn't there, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because you won't want to miss what we find next. Thanks for watching. To understand why this base was created, you have to go back to a time ruled by fear. This wasn't just a vague anxiety. It was the Cold War, a period where the world map was a chessboard of escalating tensions. The primary fear: your enemy. An enemy with thousands of nuclear missiles pointed right at you, capable of wiping entire cities off the map in minutes. This led to a constant, gnawing fear of a surprise attack. Every blip on a radar screen, every unidentified aircraft could be the beginning of the end. The paranoia was immense, and with it came another deep-seated fear: the fear of falling behind. It was a relentless technological race every day. Scientists and engineers worked against the clock, knowing that the other side was doing the exact same thing. A single breakthrough by the enemy could tip the balance of power, leading to global domination. In this climate of extreme pressure and high stakes, the United States realized it needed something new. It needed places that didn't officially exist, places that couldn't be acknowledged on any public record. It needed facilities that operated beyond the reach of normal oversight, free from the prying eyes of congressional committees or public scrutiny. And in some cases, it needed places that operated in a gray area, beyond the conventional application of the law. This secret base was the perfect solution, a direct answer to the need. It was a blank space on the map, a ghost in the system. This base wasn't just secret. It was designed from the ground up to be invisible. You wouldn't find it listed on any commercial or even most military maps. It was a deliberate omission, a geographic black hole. Its funding was a masterclass in creative accounting. Buried deep within massive defense budgets, channeled through shell corporations and black projects with generic-sounding names, money flowed in. But tracing it back to this specific location was nearly impossible. The personnel who worked here were phantoms. They would rotate in and out quietly, their records scrubbed or altered. One day they were assigned to a known base. The next they vanished into the desert, only to reappear months or years later with a cover story and a sealed file. All orders came directly from the highest levels of the government and military. A very short and secretive chain of command, even Congress, the body responsible for overseeing military spending, was kept largely in the dark. A select few members might have been given a heavily sanitized briefing, but the full scope and purpose of the base remained classified far above their clearance level. The entire operational structure was built on a principle of extreme compartmentalization. Think of it like a complex puzzle, where each person is only given one or two pieces. They never get to see the full picture on the box. This meant that very few people, perhaps only a handful at the very top, knew the complete mission of the base. The vast majority of the staff, from scientists to security guards, only knew their specific task. The physicist knew the calculations he had to run. The soldier knew his patrol route. The technician knew which machine to maintain. They were instructed not to ask questions about anything outside their immediate duties. And above all else, silence was mandatory. Every single person who entered the facility signed legally binding non-disclosure agreements that lasted a lifetime. Breaking that oath of silence wasn't just frowned upon. It had severe consequences. It meant facing federal prison, charges of treason, and being erased by the very system you served. With this ironclad secrecy, the base was free to conduct activities that were never meant for public knowledge. This was a place for testing the boundaries of technology and human endurance. Experimental aircraft that defied conventional physics, next-generation weaponry, and advanced surveillance systems were all put through their paces here, far from satellite cameras and civilian eyes. It was a training ground for elite special operations units, practicing for missions that would never be acknowledged. They rehearsed scenarios in realistic, controlled environments for operations that, on paper, never happened. Every action, every project, every single bolt and wire in this facility served one ultimate purpose: plausible deniability. The goal was to create a system where, If information ever leaked or an operation went wrong, the government could genuinely and convincingly deny any involvement. We have no knowledge of such a program. That facility does not exist. It was an insurance policy for the riskiest geopolitical gambles, and for decades, it worked perfectly. The base remained a secret, a locked vault hidden in plain sight. Its secrets protected by layers of security, bureaucracy, and fear. The silence held, and the ghost missions continued, shaping world events from the shadows. Inside the perimeter fence, the rules were different. A strange, unwritten code governed everything. Normal laws, the ones we all live by, simply didn't apply here. They were checked at the gate, like a coat you wouldn't need inside. This place operated under its own jurisdiction, a bubble where conventional accountability was just a distant concept. Oversight, it was a joke, really. The cameras that were supposed to monitor operations were conveniently broken, their lenses staring blankly, capturing nothing. The independent bodies meant to keep them in check were given carefully curated tours, shown only what the management wanted them to see. It was a perfectly constructed illusion of transparency. And in this environment, mistakes weren't just made, they were systematically buried. Picture this, a shovel, not of dirt, but of secrecy, piling layers of denial over files that documented errors, miscalculations, and negligence, out of sight, out of mind. But you can only bury things for so long before the ground starts to bulge. Inevitably, incidents occurred. First, it was small things, near misses that sent a jolt of alarm through the staff. Then, the flashing of emergency lights became a more frequent sight, a crimson pulse against the cold, concrete walls. The blare of warning alarms would slice through the quiet hum of the facility, a soundtrack to the mounting tension. Accidents, once rare, became a grim reality. Then came the exposures. Teams in full hazmat suits became a disturbingly common sight, a visual reminder of the invisible dangers that lingered in the air and settled on every surface. And with accidents and exposures came the inevitable injuries, stretchers moving swiftly down corridors, hushed voices, the metallic tang of fear in the air. These weren't just statistics on a safety report. These were people. Some workers were harmed, their lives forever altered by a single moment of failed procedure or faulty equipment. Their silhouettes became cautionary tales whispered in break rooms, their faces fading from memory as new recruits filled their empty spots. Others, those who knew too much or asked too many questions, were quietly relocated. One day they were at their station, the next, their locker was empty. A nondescript transport vehicle would appear, and they would be gone, transferred to a distant, obscure post with a stern warning to forget what they saw. It was a clean, efficient way to manage dissent and to make sure the official story held up. The records were altered. A few keystrokes, a revised entry, and a serious injury becomes a minor slip and fall. A critical system failure becomes a routine maintenance check. The digital ink of deception flowed freely, rewriting history one document at a time. Reports that couldn't be altered were simply classified. A bold top secret stamp was the ultimate silencer, locking away the truth in a vault of national security rhetoric. It was a shield, not to protect the country, but to protect the careers of those in charge, and the families. They were left in the dark, fed vague explanations and hollow reassurances. A loving partner waiting by the phone, a child asking when their parent is coming home. Their pain and confusion were just collateral damage in a much larger game. They were told nothing, because the truth was too inconvenient. Through it all, the base continued its operations, a sprawling complex humming with activity under the cloak of night. The lights burned bright, the machinery whirred on, as if nothing had ever happened. It was business as usual, a monument to denial. Why? Because shutting it down, even temporarily, would raise questions, the kind of questions that attract reporters and congressional committees. And in this world, questions were the most dangerous thing of all. They were a contagion that had to be contained at all costs. Every question mark was a potential crack in the fortress of secrecy they had built so carefully. So, they became experts in containment. Leaks, both literal and informational, were sealed with ruthless efficiency. A cracked pipe was patched. A witness was intimidated. Whistleblowers, the brave few who dared to speak out, were silenced. Their careers ruined, their credibility attacked. They became ghosts in their own lives. Their warnings dismissed as the ramblings of disgruntled employees. They were made an example of. A stark reminder to anyone else who might consider telling the truth. Because in this isolated world, truth wasn't a virtue. It was treated as a direct threat. A document detailing a safety breach wasn't a call to action. It was a problem to be managed, labeled, and neutralized. But secrets, especially ones this big, have a shelf life. Like metal left to the elements, they begin to decay over time. The rust of guilt, the slow erosion of lies, it all takes a toll. And this massive, sprawling secret began to surface. It didn't emerge from a press conference or an official admission of guilt. There were no apologies, no moments of reckoning from those in power. Instead, it surfaced through the slow, undeniable accumulation of evidence, satellite images capturing undeclared construction, environmental sensors picking up anomalies in the air and water, and financial records that didn't quite add up. The truth wasn't given. It was found, piece by painstaking piece, by those who refused to stop looking. The story doesn't end with a discovery. In fact, that's where the real game begins. High-resolution satellite images started circulating, showing strange, geometric structures where there should have been nothing but ice and snow. These weren't natural formations. Then came the flight logs. Data analysts and aviation enthusiasts tracked unusual flight paths, heavy cargo planes flying regularly to a destination that didn't officially exist. They landed and took off from a ghost runway, their transponders painting a picture of consistent, clandestine activity. The questions started piling up. Where were these planes going? What were they carrying? And who was paying for it all? Following the money is always a good strategy, and in this case, it led to a labyrinth of confusion. When auditors and investigative journalists tried to make sense of certain military budgets, the numbers just didn't add up. There were massive discrepancies, billions unaccounted for, hidden within complex ledgers and black budget projects. It was a classic shell game, moving funds around to obscure the final destination. This wasn't just sloppy accounting. It was a deliberate, carefully constructed financial smokescreen, designed to fund an operation that, on paper, was never happening. The deeper they dug, the clearer it became. Something big was being hidden, and it was being paid for with public money. The press started to take notice. A few tenacious journalists, smelling a story, began piecing together the satellite photos, the flight logs, and the budget holes. They filed Freedom of Information Act requests, which were either denied or heavily redacted. At the same time, academic researchers and historians started looking into it, cross-referencing old maps and declassified documents, searching for any historical precedent. They found whispers and hints, but no smoking gun. The puzzle pieces were there, scattered across different fields, but no one had put them all together yet. The official story was still one of blissful ignorance, but the pressure was slowly building. Faced with mounting evidence from journalists and researchers, the government's first response was a deafening silence. Questions went unanswered. Press conferences were held with empty podiums, symbolizing a refusal to even acknowledge the issue. When the silence became untenable, the strategy shifted to outright denial. Official statements were released, flatly rejecting the claims as baseless conspiracy theories. They called the satellite images misinterpretations and the flight logs anomalies. But the evidence was too compelling to be dismissed so easily. The denials only fueled more suspicion. Finally, backed into a corner, the official stance shifted again, this time to a carefully managed, limited acknowledgement. A press release was issued, a masterpiece of bureaucratic language. It stated no permanent base exists in the specified region. The key word, of course, was permanent. They followed up by explaining that any activity was related to temporary scientific and logistical operations. The wording was everything. By using terms like temporary and operations instead of base, they created a legal loophole. It allowed them to admit to a presence without admitting to the infrastructure, the scale, or the long-term strategic purpose. It was a masterclass in redefining reality to avoid accountability. So, officially, the base still doesn't exist on any public map. If you look at the official records, that piece of land is empty. But we know it continues to operate. Night vision satellite imagery shows lights turning on, vehicles moving, and heat signatures indicating a fully functional facility. This is how modern secrecy survives, not by hiding completely, but by controlling the narrative. By twisting words and redefining what is real. This base wasn't a mistake or an accident. The blueprints show it was planned meticulously from the start. Every approval stamp, every hidden budget line was intentional, and this sets a dangerous precedent. It creates a blueprint for denial that can be used again and again. The implications are chilling. If a government can successfully build, operate, and deny the existence of one major military installation, it begs the question, how many others are out there? How many more secrets are hidden in plain sight, concealed not by walls, but by carefully chosen words? This is the story of the military base that, according to the official record, simply isn't there. Thank you for watching. If this story intrigued you, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated on our future investigations.